Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into one of the most fascinating corporate evolutions out there. We're talking about Tesla. But we're not just looking at the cars you see on the highway. We're actually tracing this incredible thread from a 19th century visionary straight through to a modern trillion-dollar ecosystem, one that spans AI, global energy grids, and even advanced robotics. If you ever found yourself wondering how that EV parked in your neighbor's driveway connects to a massive global AI network, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Let's just get right into it.
Now, what's really interesting about this quote is that it doesn't come from a modern tech CEO. No way. This incredibly bold prediction was actually made back in 1904 by the inventor Nikola Tesla. Over a century ago, he was already talking with absolute confidence about revolutionary departures in how we produce energy. The guy was just completely obsessed with the future of electricity, way before the rest of the world was even remotely ready for it.
And really, that brings us to the big guiding question for our explainer today. How exactly did an idealistic 19th century inventor's name become the literal banner for a 21st century trillion-dollar corporate empire? Like, how do we get from a lone genius experimenting with alternating currents to a massive company mass-producing autonomous robots and solar roofs? It's a huge leap.
To figure that out, we've got a pretty straightforward roadmap. First, the visionary namesake. Second, sparking the EV empire. Third, a vertically integrated ecosystem. Fourth, the frontier of AI. And finally, navigating complex controversies.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The visionary namesake.
So, Nikola Tesla was born back in 1856 in Smiljan, Croatia, which was part of the Austrian Empire at the time. He was, frankly, a brilliant engineer who eventually left his homeland to work in America. And he just fundamentally shaped our modern electrical systems. And what's really wonderful is that his legacy is still carefully preserved today. In fact, in 2006, right on the 150th anniversary of his birth, the Nikola Tesla Memorial Center was opened in Croatia. It's this massive 1.37 square kilometer complex. And the coolest part? It actually features prototypes of his inventions, including his induction motor. That's literally the exact technology that would later inspire the motors inside the cars that bear his name today. Talk about coming full circle. Moving right along to Section 2, Sparking the EV Empire. Let's shift gears to 2003.
That's the year Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning officially incorporated Tesla Motors. Elon Musk led the first major funding round shortly after in 2004, eventually taking the role of CEO. But how did they actually build this business from scratch? Well, they used a brilliantly engineered financial staircase that they called the Master Plan. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how it worked. First, they started by building the Roadster. This was a low-volume, high-priced premium sports car targeted squarely at early adopters, people who weren't really sensitive to a hefty price tag. Then, they took all that revenue and used it to fund the next phase of the plan, the Model 3 and Model Y. These were high-volume, lower-priced mass-market vehicles. They essentially hacked the system to fund electric vehicles for the masses using the wallets of the wealthy.
And, this master plan became a reality at just a staggering pace. They started production of the Roadster in 2008, literally inside the service bays of an old car dealership. Fast forward a bit to 2012, they launched the Model S luxury sedan, which is what really put them on the global map. By 2017, they hit that ultimate mass market goal with the Model 3, although getting there required pushing through what the company openly called production hell, just to get the assembly lines automated. And then, by 2023, they started delivering the incredibly polarizing stainless steel Cybertruck. So in just about 15 years, they practically completely rewrote the automotive rulebook.
So what was the actual result of that wild 15-year sprint? Check out this number, 17.6%. By 2024, that specific strategy had successfully secured the company a massive 17.6% share of the entire global battery electric vehicle market. They weren't just showing up to participate in the industry. For a long, long time, they were outright leading the whole pack.
Which brings us to Section 3, a vertically integrated ecosystem.
To really wrap our heads around their dominance, we have to talk about vertical integration. Here's the deal. Traditional automakers typically outsource about 80% of their parts to external suppliers. They're basically just handling the final assembly. But Tesla, they do the exact opposite. They develop and manufacture their core components entirely in-house. We're talking about rolling their own cylindrical battery cells, writing all their own proprietary software, designing their own electric motors, and get this, even creating their own specialized glass. It's wild, but it gives them an unprecedented level of control over both their supply chain and their profit margins.
But to actually pull off that massive level of in-house manufacturing, you need a staggering global footprint. Just consider these locations.
You've got Gigafactory Nevada handling all the batteries and those massive semi-trucks. Gigafactory New York is focused on the solar roof and the supercharger network. Then, expanding globally, you have Gigafactory Shanghai in China and Gigafactory Berlin in Germany just churning out the wildly popular Model Y. And finally, Gigafactory Texas, which is their current headquarters and the birthplace of the Model Y and the Cybertruck. They haven't just built factories. They've essentially built these massive, self-contained manufacturing cities across 3 different continents.
Let's move to and see how this builds into their next phase. Section 4, the frontier of AI.
Because let's be real, this is no longer just a car company we're talking about. It's fully evolved into a robotics and supercomputing powerhouse. Sure, they've pushed super hard into their supervised full self-driving software, but they are taking it way, way further. Just in 2024, they unveiled the Cybercab, which is a concept vehicle that literally has no steering wheel or pedals, alongside the Robovan, which is designed for 20-passenger autonomous transport. Plus, they're teaming up with SpaceX and xAI to build Terafab. This is an AI megafab built to produce 1 trillion watts of AI computing capacity. And depending on where you are in the world, they're even integrating advanced AI chatbots like Grok and DeepSeek right into the car's dashboards. But honestly, this next data point might just be the most surprising one of the bunch: 1 million. In early 2026, the company announced a monumental pivot. They decided they were going to stop manufacturing their older Model S and Model X vehicles completely. Instead, they shifted their focus to producing 1 million Optimus humanoid robots per year. Let that sink in. They are essentially betting their entire future on the conviction that autonomous, walking robots are going to be infinitely more vital than traditional luxury sedans. And the crazy thing is, the financial markets have repeatedly validated this super futuristic vision. This massive pivot to AI, robotics, and energy storage has driven the company's market capitalization right over the $1 trillion mark multiple times, most recently hitting that peak between late 2024 and mid-2025. It's a truly staggering valuation. Wall Street is essentially betting massive segments of the global economy on the idea that these ambitious, sci-fi-level promises are actually going to come true.
But it hasn't all been smooth sailing. Let's look at Section 5, Navigating Complex Controversies. Because right alongside all that incredible innovation, the company does face some very severe real-world challenges. From a regulatory standpoint, they've got federal probes from the NHTSA regarding their full self-driving software, specifically looking into 44 incidents where the system reportedly failed to stop at red lights. From a labor perspective, they faced serious lawsuits over harassment and racial bias at their California facilities, not to mention a historic long-running strike by the IF Metall union in Sweden over collective bargaining rights. On top of that, in 2025 and 2026, the company saw tangible sales drops in Europe and the UK, along with global protests and even vandalism at their locations. The data directly correlates this public reaction to the CEO's active involvement in US politics. So the crucial point is, whether you're talking about legal, labor, safety, or political issues, these are all major hurdles happening in the real world, right alongside their engineering triumphs. We're keeping it strictly to the facts here, but there is no denying the friction.
So, taking a step back, just consider the massive journey we've unpacked today. We started way back with Nikola Tesla's 1904 vision of revolutionizing energy. We tracked the incredibly clever master plan that built a global EV juggernaut. We've seen the sheer scale of their gigafactories and this breathtaking pivot toward a future filled with autonomous cybercabs and humanoid robots. But we've also seen the very real regulatory, legal, and social roadblocks standing right in their path. It really leaves us with one massive question. Will this bold pivot to robotics and AI firmly cement their trillion-dollar legacy for the rest of the century, or will all this real-world friction ultimately slow the empire down? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it helped bring this incredibly complex topic into crystal clear focus for you. Catch you next time.